place, and that happy place is at home, where you are safe and with your family, and that you are, keeping all the measures in mind and keeping them in practice more so. Anyway, now we're going to be chatting with Marissa Gibson Bailey, who is a sport and exercise scientist and an exercise physiologist, as well as a medicine advocate. Good morning and welcome, Marissa.
Good morning, Carrie. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Hi, Rokas again.
Hi, Marissa.
Thank you for joining us this morning again.
Yes,
and this morning the topic is...
you.
Was that? Yes, it's great to have you with us. And this morning the topic is a question really, like are all those Zoom meetings and the time spent online, and being physically inactive for that period of time, is it, doing us any harm? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough physical activity in this time where we have to be on Zoom so many times for meetings, for schooling, for work, and things as well? So let's answer that question.
Yeah, we actually there. Most of us are there maybe between 6 to 8 hours per day.
Right.
Whether it's sitting, virtual, as you said, virtual learning, telemarketing, whether we're in isolation, mandated quarantine. Should we be mindful of any increased risk? Right. I think so. I think that it is very easy to fall into that physical inactivityness. In terms of not being active or not being sufficiently active.
Yeah.
Let's look at the point of view of a student, for example, that wakes up to go to roll call for 7:45. From 7:45 to 8 o'clock, you get into class. Class may end at 8:40. You only have 5 minutes to go into another class at 8:45. Right, and you go like this and maybe until 2 o'clock. And this is every single day. Yeah. Imagine managers, imagine directors, imagine coordinators, staff that is in meetings for meeting after meeting and daily, because you're not in that same space. So it is important to note about that level of physical inactivityness, because it is highly related to poor physical and mental health. Right. Remember, We are not doing the things that we are accustomed doing. We're not able to go out and do the things that we like to do. So all of these factors would compound. Our psychophysical health is going to be at risk. And I think that those coordinators, those facilitators, those managers, those directors, at the beginning of your meeting, at least put aside, let's say 2 to 3 minutes, and do mobility of those articulations. Let's start from the head, go down to your ankles, and it helps with the viscosity of the synovial fluid around these joints. Yeah. Remember, you are seated for a long period of time. If you're not in a meeting, it's because you have to now go online or on a computer to complete work to submit. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that, your wellness and your health. When do you eat? Sometimes you get up, you just grab something and it's not a balanced meal. So this continues from week to week, and it is going to accumulate into something that is negative until you start feeling that your foot becoming numb and your feet are swelling and all of that. Then you start paying attention, and I'm hoping that it's not late at that time.
Now, being sedentary for such a long period of time, during the day and for an extended period of time over the months nearly a year now that we've been in, lockdown and, in a state where we have less physical activity and movement on the whole. What are some of the issues that can arise from being so sedentary?
Well, first of all, if you are not burning the amount of calories or energy expenditure, let me use the correct terminology, the correct energy expenditure for your physiological operation, then you are going to be operating at a deficit. Right? And if you're not even being active, or you were active before and you're not as active now, then there are going to be small decrements occurring. How much, we don't know, because we don't want to be subjective in our feedback. But we're talking about, you don't want any lifestyle or non-communicable diseases to start appearing.
Right.
And that could be anything. You have to always look at the genetic factors as well. What is more predominant in your family, right? First, to begin with. And then you have to look at your own lifestyle and what are the different factors that is going to contribute to anything that is going to lead you down a path where you're going to start suffering from any one of the non-communicable diseases. Right. So again, it's just about being active. 5-minute increments, right? Going along the day is very important. Reducing, let's talk about tips. If you're about to ask that,
Yeah, exactly.
Reducing the meeting duration to less than 1 hour, right? I think that be more productive during that hour and allow for and consider start and end times that allow adequate transition between meeting rooms, right? Implement that 5-minute standing activity break for every 25 minutes of meeting time or work performed, right? Very important during this time, especially when you're sitting down. There's a lot of pressure now on the spine. Facilitate hip, hamstring, and lower back stretches at the desk and work area. So I hear the terminology of the exercise,
Right.
that you could use exercises seated at the desk, right? Model and promote physical activity during your virtual meeting. And this is more for those facilitators or those very outspoken employees asking kindly, could we at least do 2 to 3 minutes of physical activity? Again, I talk about the mobility of those articulations. Let's look at 4 to 6 repetition. If you want to go as far as 6 to 8, that would be good. So you talk about flexion, extension, you talk about rotation and circumduction of these areas, right? On a daily, it helps with the viscosity of that synovial fluid around these articulations. Very, very important.
And it's not the same for everybody. Some people, you're speaking about energy expenditure, and there are some people with faster metabolism than others, and others with slow metabolism. Is there anything that people should take into consideration across the board for their various physiological types?
Well, this is where you have to be specific with your trainer, right? If they know how to use the energy expenditure as it relates to physical activity. But there's a pendulum that the different experts at American College of Sport Medicine, there is a listing of activities that gives you ranges of what different activities and how many kilojoules per activity that you're going to expend. And that is basically just a range. So doing these different activities, for example, if you do gardening, another activity, it probably would accumulate to your energy expenditure, but that is a calculation that your physical activity person, your trainer, would have to do specific to you, because there's certain equations, there's certain characteristics of your physiology that they have to take into consideration in doing that.
Would you recommend that people, especially students, those who are doing corporate work, and a lot of them who have to sit at that computer screen for a long period of time, many times they say, oh, I don't have time to work out, I don't have time for exercise and these things as well. What are some tips that you can give to squeeze in some time for movement and activity outside of just sitting at a desk for hours on end?
I want everyone, including myself, because sometimes, you could get bogged down with doing a lot of things. It's that at the back of your mind, know that lifestyle modification begin with small behavior changes. So as I mentioned before, whether it's 2 to 3 or 5 to 10 minutes accumulation across the time, those small, consistent behavior changes can provide drastic improvements in overall health. So have that to the back of your mind. And remember, even if you're changing from, let's say, 8:40 to go into a chemistry class at 8:45, use that time, just 2 minutes, okay? And the repetition doesn't have to be long. It's better than nothing.
Right.
Do something is better than nothing, because changes in general health can be as simple as what happens during your next virtual meeting.
And that's a wonderful way to wrap this up. I want to thank you so much, Marissa, for joining us this morning
and
giving us this information. And we do hope that somebody learned something. I know I did. And that they could get some movement and some exercise into their day as well, instead of being, sedentary all the time. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And see you again next Friday.
Yes, see you again.
All right, take care, Marissa.